Today we're going to be installing stair tread caps over these existing treads and new risers. Now the ones I purchased come just in a solid wood and you can stain them or paint them or seal them however you want. I liked the natural color, so what I actually did was I just did several coats of sealer, and I'll share that process with you. They come in 48-inch lengths, and so I'm gonna have to cut them down to size, but we ultimately made that decision because there's a lot of laminate and adhesive and sticky stuff on here, and it wasn't worth, in this case, the time to sand these down, and I don't think they're in great shape to save them. If you want a video where we try to save a set of existing stairs and kind of pretty them up as much as we can, I'll link that here and at the end of this video. But in this case, we're putting covers on. So I am going to go ahead and get this all prepped. One thing that we're specifically doing in this case is this has a nose on it, a rounded nose like most stair treads do. And the caps actually need to kind of overlap that. And if we leave this nose, you can see it at the bottom. So we are going to cut the nose off of all of these treads before we install our new risers and our new caps. Sometimes it's easier, rather than trying to measure and see with that curve and get it exactly right, to make some sort of story stick for yourself. So this is just an old paint stick. I'm gonna put the flat side up against the back of my riser. I'm gonna make a line, and then I know that's how much I wanna cut off. Now, when I line it up, it might be a little bit hard to see because this is curved. I'll kind of show you. So when you align this under there, you just drew your line, right? So that's easy, but then you're like, oh, I can't quite see where to line it up perfectly. So what you could do, take a square, butt it up against, or it could, you know, a piece of wood or whatever, as long as you're getting it lined up right. But the square helps because you can line it up with your floor below. Take your square, line that up with your nosing, butt this up against your square. My square is a little short, but I can at least feel it. I just could almost push over. And then you can make your line. And once we're good with our line, I'm gonna verify, and then I'm gonna do a Sharpie line all the way across or something very visible so that then we can go ahead and cut our line. But you do have to be careful because the measurement I took right here, that's to this line. Now if I come over here to do this one, that's my shorter line. It's not exactly the same. And so you do want to check, because these are not perfect, houses are not perfectly square. There's always going to be a little bit of a margin for difference. So keep that in mind when you're making your measurements. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go from line to line with a straight edge and make a super visible mark, because we want to be able to see it really well when we're cutting with our saw. And then we'll check over there and get our line the rest of the way across. So to do your plunge cut, you have this guard that normally kicks back when you hit if you're just scrolling onto a piece you're gonna cut, but we're gonna hold the guard back with our thumb as we hold the saw, and we're gonna drop down like that onto what we're cutting. Because of the shape of my circular saw, I couldn't cut all the way to the wall, so I used a multi-tool to make the rest of the cut. Here's what it looks like once we have the nosing cut off. I completely prepped my risers and my caps before I installed them. It's just easier to work with them that way. I started by sanding everything down progressively to a fine grit so I could put a sealer on. I did not stain these. I liked the natural wood look, so I only did a finish coat of poly. And so at first I sanded everything with a power orbital sander. And then after I did my coats of finish between each layer of poly, I did a hand sand. And the reason I like to use a hand sander is I just feel like there's less risk of me taking too much off. And so I just did a hand sanding pad between each coat. And I did the maximum amount of coats that my sealer recommended, since it was going to be what I would think would be a high traffic area since it's stairs. All of the risers and stair tread covers that I'm working with came in 48 inches or 4 feet long. These are less than 3 feet, so I'm going to have to trim them down lengthwise. And then my risers are actually a little bit tall, so I'm going to have to trim them down heightwise. So I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to work my way up. So that's my first one, because basically I'm going to do riser cap, riser cap, riser cap, because each riser is going to sit on top of the next cap, and so on the way up. So right now I have cut this lengthwise. I'm gonna go ahead and take my pencil and do a line on the back so I know how much I need to cut this down height-wise. And what I'm gonna do with this one once I cut it is see if these are consistent enough that I can just copy this all the way up. I'm just gonna hold it on and go. If I can, great. If not, I will measure for each individual one. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Now, keep in mind that once you cut these, they're cut. So it's better to cut a little longer than you think and then cut a little bit more, trim it down if you need to, get a new nice fresh saw blade and make beautiful, beautiful cuts. So we're gonna go ahead and get going on that. All right, so we've trimmed our front board to the height we need and to the length we need. So we're gonna put the front riser on and then we're gonna put the first tread on, which we've also trimmed down and dry fit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick it with liquid nails and then I'm gonna pin nail it in to hold it while it sets up. So pretty. Now our tread is a snug fit, which is what we want because we don't want a bunch of gaps and stuff. We're gonna take our board, we're gonna put it on top of our tread so we can get our height, and then we're gonna scribe the back like we did the other one so we know how wide we need to trim down. And then we'll also staple this in a couple places just while that glue adheres, but I'm gonna wait in case I need any wiggle room with that. So I'm gonna go trim this and then I'll use that to trim this next tread as well. We are on our final step. So we're gonna glue it and nail it while the glue sets up. We've already cut the step so we know it fits. And then we'll have to cut our last riser. Now I'm just looking underneath, pushing the overhang flush with the riser. So that's the underneath parts, that's our overhang, and then you can push that back and make sure it's flush. Now I have been, before I nail this in, I've been doing my risers just in case I need to make any adjustments. So I'm gonna go trim this board down. So here's what we started with, and here's what we ended up with.